Well, hi everybody, welcome to my latest video. Well, this one I'm going to show you how to improve your audio, whether you're doing live streaming or you're just creating videos for either YouTube, Instagram, or whatever. The key to this is, the way I've learned up to this point, is having a mixer. The mixer is critical. It allows you to take multiple input sources. In this case, you could take a couple of different microphones. You could also take in some music. You could take in some output from your computer. You could blend them together and then produce a combined sound the way you'd like it. And you have full control of it with this device. So let me show you this particular one and how it works. They all pretty much work the same though. Okay, this is a mixer. Some people refer to them as a soundboard, but it's kind of small. Usually when they're talking about soundboards, they're talking about the much bigger units that take in many, many different inputs. This one can take in 2 microphone inputs, actually a 3rd microphone input and 4th microphone input, as long as they're all mono. Or it can combine 2 of them into 3 and 4, which can be stereo. These 2 input jacks are dual purpose. You could either use a regular XLR connector to it, which would plug right in here, or you could use a 1/4 inch. In this case, it could be either a balanced or unbalanced connector that would go into here. You could also take a stereo microphone, like in this case, and plug them into the 3rd and 4th port positions on it. They're numbered 3 and 4, and that then would convert it to stereo. Now, if you look down each of the rows, and this one controls the 1st microphone, this one controls the 2nd microphone, this one controls the combination of microphones 3 and 4. If you plug the connector only into the 3rd port, then you could turn a mono into covering both of the tracks on the stereo on output. So it depends what you want to do. If all you have is another mono, you can plug it in here, and then the output would sound like it's balanced because both sides of the stereo would have the same input on it. Now let's look at one of these. If we look at one line, it represents all of them, with of course the deviation for the combination of 3 and 4. At the very top is the gain. That's the microphone gain. And right now I have it turned all the way down on all 3 of them. By the way, that's the way you start off. You don't plug it in and connect it if you have the gain up at all. The same thing for the output volume, the bottom connector here. You keep those all the way down. I'll talk about this yellow one in a moment, but let me talk about the equalizer. This particular mixer, you can adjust either the highs, the mediums, or the lows. And it's determined by frequency. I believe the highs are anything above 20 kilohertz. The lows are anything below about 100 hertz, and then the middle one takes care of the middle frequencies. By default, you can make them less of it or more of it. You actually have a scale here, which is going from -15 to +15 dB on each one of these inputs. That's what the little numbers would say if you zoom in a little bit. The same thing holds true for all 3 of these equalizers. In the case of the actual gain, it shows a different set of from -6 dB to +13 dB. That's what the gain here can do. And over here it's just a level from 0 to 10 down in the output level. There's also a little red light here for each channel, and that is to sense if you're starting to clip. So if you see this little light starting to blink, that means that you have exceeded the expected output levels for this particular channel, or any channel that the lights light up. All 3 of them have it. Now, up here we have a pad. The pad allows you, if you're putting in, let's say, a line input and it's very high gain already coming into it, you would push this button in and it would decrease the input level by 26 dB. It's written right there. Normally you don't need that for a microphone, however. And then over here, if you have a condenser microphone, then you would want to give it the phantom power, which is an extra 48 volts that's being fed in to actually power the microphone. If you have a dynamic microphone or a line input, you don't need that. It's only used for a condenser microphone. So that's what takes care of most of the buttons here that I talked about, except for this one. It's labeled the FX. The FX represents modifications to the inputs that are taken care of by a built-in digital sound processor into this. Now, this is called an analog mixer or analog soundboard because it has the buttons here that you can control at any time. These are actually controlling operational amplifier circuits within this device. However, built into this is also a digital sound processor, and up here it also has an MP3 player. And both of those are really digital type devices, as you will see when I power it on. But the FX is for effects. What that means is you can alter the way the sound comes out with these 2 buttons here. One is which effect you want, and they go on this particular mixer from 1 to 16. And here you can increase an echo to any one of those effects. And I'll demonstrate that when I demonstrate how to use the FX. Then over to the right here, we have 3 more knobs. This one here is for the send and return. The send and return, we have 2 jacks, 2 1/4-inch jacks up here. One says send and return to match these. And that is if you have an external digital sound processor that you wish to send the sound after it comes in from the mics or whatever inputs you have that are controlled by these, which includes the MP3 player if you'd like, and it feeds them out, and then over here you can feed them back in, and you can control the percentage of that digital sound processor modifications that you want incorporated into your sound. Now I don't have one of those, so I won't be able to demonstrate that particular function of the mixer. Then over here on the right hand side, these 2 1/4-inch, well, one is for a control room or a control output. Let's say you have somebody monitoring it from a sealed off control room and you're using this, let's say, to do some sort of live show. Well, they can monitor where you're going with what's coming out of this. You run a 1/4-inch cable, preferably a balanced cable. I'm not going to get into the difference between balance and unbalanced here, but I could cover that in a future video, which is basically the same thing you would get if you were listening with your headset. And you should always have a headset when you're using one of these. This particular headset, it had a 3.5 millimeter TRS connector coming out, and I converted it to a 1/4-inch TRS, which means it is stereo. It has a tip, a ring, and a ground, and therefore it is a stereo sound. So this is converting from the 3.5 millimeter to the 1/4-inch. And then I could take this and I can plug it, for example, right into the headphone. And then finally, on the bass controls, this is the overall output volume of the mixed audio. Whatever you've mixed in here, how many inputs you've had, whether you included FX, whether you included some external digital sound processing, whatever it is, this controls the total output that will come out of these 2 jacks, stereo, left and right. The only thing I didn't talk about in detail was the effects. Each channel has its own effect button. And the effect button, this actually becomes a percentage of the total output volume. So it's in proportion to this. So if you go, right now it's 0, if you go straight up, that's 50%. You go all the way to the right, that's 100%. And it actually has a scale from 0 to 10. And you could do quarters. You can come up and say 25% and 75% if you want. But these are things you have to play with as you're listening to it. There's no given direct formula on the right way to set any of this up. You set a gain. Usually you'll start off with maybe about 1/3 of the thing, maybe 1/3, and then you play with it. And then you up the output volume of that one channel, and you're listening to it. Keep this one in the 0 dB range. There's actually a scale on here, and right there is a 0. So try to keep this. They actually put a little outline there to show where you should try to normally keep it. Now for either the combined stereo from these 2 channels, these 2 1/4-inch connectors, well, you have your choice of either having that fed down this line or the MP3 player. And there's a button here to make the decision. When it's in a down position like I have it now, it's using the MP3 player. It says USB. And the MP3 player includes a couple of different options that I'll go into in detail later. If you push this up so it stands up, then what you're doing is you're taking the feed from these 2 connectors. So whatever was governed by how you set these particular controls, along with the FX if you choose to do that, would then be the output here. And one more thing about the FX. You have one FX percentage for each of the channels, right? However, you also have an FX for the overall outputs. You can decide that this channel you want 50%, this one you want 100%, this one you want none, and then this controls the effect that'll actually be felt on the output connectors. It also has an output stereo, what the output levels will be, whether or not you're clipping or not, controlled by this master volume control here, or slider that's here. So that's a quick overall introduction to this device. And again, this is the particular one that I have. You can actually buy many different models of this from many different manufacturers. The Pyle seems like an excellent one and has excellent reviews, so that's the reason that I bought it. I only needed 2 microphone channels, so that's why I got this particular model. And I like the fact that it has a PC interface to it. It's another way of referring to that USB connector. And you can also use that PC interface as a regular USB input. And in addition to that, what I forgot to mention before is I could actually write to this as well. Again, depending on how I set this up, I can actually record whatever the output is from this onto the USB stick. Okay, before I get into some of the demos, I wanted to show you the manual. I went to the web and I did a Google search for the Pyle PMX U43BT, which is this model, and I found a PDF available from the Pyle website. Downloaded it, and this is it right here. Well, it actually covers all 3 mixers that are in this series. This 4 input version, the 6 input version, and the 8 input version. And you get whichever size you want depending on your needs, obviously. But you should look through this if you do decide to get one of these or any mixer, because it does come some of the nuance points that you need to know. For example, it goes into detail what each of the buttons are represented, and some of it is not as obvious from what's written on the actual mixer. So you have to read through the instructions to figure it out. I'll be demonstrating most of that, however. It's not a very long manual. They're very brief, but it's something to keep in mind. It's not meant for, sitting there and doing casual reading of. You have to really pay attention to it. Anyway, I just wanted to show you this so you'd be able to see. You should, always is the case, you should always read the manual. Okay, let's set this up for testing. The first thing I'm going to do is actually connect my headset. So I think I showed you this before. I have my headset set up. I have the adapter, and it'll plug into the headset one. And I'll leave the phones at mid-range. Let me lower the volume on everything else so that we don't get any bumps or snags. Put these mid-range, try it out. There we go. So that's close enough. This one's at the 0. And now we will power it on. Let's start by putting microphone on. I have this dynamic microphone here. So I'll go ahead and put this on, and I'll be talking to this dynamic microphone as I'm doing the test initially. Here's the XLR cable that was for this microphone, and I'll plug that in here. It is a dynamic microphone, therefore I do not need the 45 volts. So I'll leave that alone. I don't want the pad pushed. And I think that's about it for now. Oh, I got to connect the computer to it. So I'm going to connect up these ports to the computer. And both of these are being consolidated into one 3.5-inch stereo connector in the back of it. See if this works. Testing, testing. There we go. Now I can hear it. It looks like it's recording okay. I do not have the 48 volts connected because it's a dynamic microphone. If I press it, it's not going to really make any difference one way or the other. It's still the same volume either way. I'm not going to press the pad. If I press the pad, it drops down 26 dB. I tested it. It dropped down to 26 dBs. So now we know that this microphone works, and I can be heard through this. Let me now play with some of the other features to it. Let me demonstrate how the FX works. The first thing I need to do is pick a channel. It's on channel 1. That's the lowest effect, the lowest FX effect. Let me go ahead and add to this channel. Let me go to 50%. And I got to turn this knob here too in order to enable it overall. So let me turn this one up. Let's see what we get going on here. And I hear a little bit of echo in the background. So that's the way the FX works. If I go ahead and change this to a Pyle port, let's jump up to, it has 16 of them. So I'll jump up to 7. You have to wait 3 seconds. And now we can really hear it. And I got the echo going on with this one. I can lower it to no echo. And I can lower it to maximum echo. So you see to hear the difference on that. So you can do that channel by channel and then across the whole board if you'd like. So I'll turn that down for now. Let me go ahead now and play with the equalizer. Let me increase the treble all the way up. Does that sound any different? A little bit different, not much. Let me lower it all the way down though. You actually hear it a little bit better when I kill all the treble. What about the bass, the lows? I'll go all the way down. It sounds like I just lowered the volume because I have both of these down. Let me go ahead and pump it all the way up, and now I can really hear it. At that point, it's extreme, so let me set it for about here. I'll come up a little bit on this one. You have to play with these things until you get it sounding the way you want. You try different combinations until it has the type of depth that you want to it. That looks good in the middle. That one's about 25-30%, and that one is way up, probably about 60%. But this mic works fine. So now let me go ahead and try a condenser mic, and I do have one of these. I had bought it a while ago, but I never tested it until I bought this. I did not do a review of this one. So I'll just put this one off to the side here. That way I can switch over and talk to that one when I want. Picture there. And I got to take this one and connect its cable up, which is right here. And I'll put this into the second port. Again, before you do it, make sure everything in volume is down. And then we plug this one in here, and we'll see what we get. Now this one is a condenser mic, so I'm going to need to give it the 48 volts. There is no volume on it. Let me go ahead now and pump this one down all the way, and then let me set this one up to about 3/4 in terms of the input. But there's no output here, so I'm going to go down on this one and up on this one. Can you hear me on that one? So it does work. It is louder, but it has more noise to it as well. That's one of the problems with a condenser mic. There's also more pops because I don't have a pop filter on it. That's what you hear when the thing is popping when it gets to the overage. You probably even see the little red light popping on here when I get a little bit up. If I pop it up a little bit more, you'll probably see that red popping up on it. Not there yet, but pretty close. So okay, let me play with the treble and the bass, the highs and the lows. I will lower this one down to this, and you can hear it having an effect. Let me raise this one up, and you hear it sounding pretty deep. It is popping a lot. And look at this, the red light was actually coming on there. So the red light indicated that we were going over. So I got to pop this down a little bit in terms of the input gain more than anything else, and see if that works a little bit better. It seems like when I pumped this one way up, it did that. So let me lower that a little bit down, and now we're there. So both of these microphones work. The next test I will try to see if I can put a USB stick in there. Let me switch these two mics again. I'll lower this one down. And now I should be back up on this one with a lot less noise because of this dynamic microphone. Well, let me go ahead and see if I can put a USB stick in. If I just throw a USB stick in here, and that's going to come down this center one, the third one here, because I have it set for USB. It's going to come through that channel. So I just plug it in. Here we got. It is reading, but we're not hearing anything because I don't have it up. So let me pump this up a little bit. I'll pump the input a little bit. I'll pump this. There we go. We got the music in the background. And I can switch channels by hitting channel forward. Okay, that's good. There we go. There's the music. Beautiful. So that's working fine. Let me stop this. I'll hit pause. And you hit pause to remove the USB stick. The next thing I'll do is I'll try to see if the Bluetooth works. Let me get my phone out and make sure that I can connect. It should automatically be set to connect to it because I was on this before. But let me go to, here it is here. I have the music ready to go. Let me switch this to Bluetooth. We should notice that it connects when I do that. Yep, it did. I actually heard the tone. I don't know if you heard it or not, but I heard it. So the Bluetooth is now connected. If I play here, and it should be using this same one here that we were using for the USB. There we go. Now we got the music from my Bluetooth being mixed in with it. And if I pause it or stop it, it stops. So the Bluetooth works too. Okay, now let's try the USB connection so we can input the sound through the USB rather than through this. So I found my USB cable here. It's already to the other end of this is connected to the computer already. Let's see what happens when I plug this in. It says PC. Let me switch over so that it's using this input instead of that one. Okay, now it should be working fine. I can prove that this one is not connected by unplugging it. So now it's going in through the USB into the computer. It sounds almost exactly the same as you noticed. So this goes to show you how this works. It didn't change it whether I went to the normal line input versus the USB. The sound is still doing extremely well. Okay, I think that covers all the testing that I wanted to do on this. So hopefully, I covered everything. I am skipping a couple of things. I'm not testing these 1/4-inch ports for 3 and 4, the two mono ports that could become stereo, but I could use cables just like this and have them connected up to some other device if I wanted to do that. I'd have to push this button up then so that it was using 3/4, not USB. I also didn't check the control output, so we don't have a control room here, but that's like having another headphone set, so I could plug another headphone in there and hear it as well. And I didn't check the send and return, which we have the separate volume controls down here for if we wanted to try those. And that's meant for an external digital sound processor. Well, that completes this video on ways to improve and or fix your sound. In my case, it had a dramatic improvement upon the quality of my sound on my system for live streaming. But I'm also going to use it when I'm doing certain videos as well. Obviously, I have a low-end device here. It's $75. There are things like the Go XLR, which obviously is something that is high-end, digital, fully, and works well with streamers. But that's going to cost you about 8 times what this thing cost you. Last time I looked, it was like $570 to get one of those. So I think for purposes of getting started, this is a good one. $75 is not a major investment. And that way you can figure out how to use this. At least in the manual one, it's easier to use generally than switching over to the digital. You could always graduate to that later on. So hopefully you got something out of this video, and if you did, you'd consider subscribing to my channel. But at the very least, you'd probably want to subscribe just to see future videos like this, where I might be doing other videos to show the next level of this. For example, what's the difference between different types of microphones in terms of XLR versus non-XLR? What is balanced and unbalanced? What does the 48 volts mean? Anyway, I could go over all that stuff if people put a comment down below and let me know that they're interested in that. So until the next time, take care and stay healthy.